p.m. And so it's time for LinkedIn Live. And today we're talking about culture 10 ways to have a great culture in your organization, regardless of your industry or what size your organization is. Our topic today is 10 ways to motivate people and retain people, because what's going on in the world right now, great resignation, all of this tumult, a lot of people changing jobs. Culture is right in the middle of that. And it's one of my favorite topics. My background, as I probably mentioned, is HR for thousands of years. And that's a job all about culture and creating and growing and propagating a really great culture. So it's one of my favorite topics and something I've written and spoken about a ton over the years. So welcome, welcome. And please feel free to leave a comment and say hi. If you want to tell us where you're joining us from, that's great. If you want to ask me a question in the chat, that's awesome. And this will be recorded. It'll be on LinkedIn for a few days. So if you circle back, you'll see the recording if you can't stay with us for the whole hour today. So, culture. How do you create a great culture, a human culture? Well, I'll tell you a story to start off. Okay. First story is we've got a lot of CEOs, a lot of management teams right now saying to their employees, you went home and worked from home during the quarantine for COVID-19. And now it's time to come back to work. Time to come back to work. September 10th, September 25th, come back to work for our culture, for our culture. That's why we need you back at work. We get the great collaboration and innovation that we need in our company when you're all here together in the same room. And if you have heard that at work, you're not alone. There's a lot of companies using this culture line as an excuse to drag people back to the workplace, even when they've shown, proven beyond a doubt for 2 years that they can do their jobs perfectly well from home or, frankly, from anywhere, from a coffee shop. Now, why would CEOs want people back to work? Number one, back to the office. And number two, why would they say we need you here for the culture? These are not CEOs who spent a lot of time or energy talking about culture before, right? Well, we can guess why they want people back in the office, because they can see them. And the truth is that we have not really evolved past the industrial revolution type of management that many or most managers are familiar with and more comfortable with. I'm watching you. You physically drive here or take the bus or walk or take the train, and then I see you. And that is literally at the heart of why CEOs want their employees back in the office. Now, the Goldman Sachs CEO ordered employees back to the office, ordered them back to the office a couple of months ago, and only 50% of them showed up. What? 50% of them stayed home and said, really? I dare you, fire me. This is what's happening now. This is the major theme and current in the workplace, is that the old style managerial command and control mindset is just not going to fly anymore in 2023 and beyond. And that was proven at Goldman Sachs. 50% of their workforce said, I'm not going back. Are you going back? If enough people say no, why should we go back? You asked us an enormous favor. Do your job from home. It wasn't can you please? It wasn't we're going to pay you more. It was you're going home, figure it out at the dining room table, whatever you need to do, figure it out with the kids, figure it out with the pets, figure it out with the neighbors or the construction down the street, figure it out, do your job. And people did that for 2 years. And then one day it was like that never happened. The whole favor that people did for their employers during the pandemic never happened. I want you back in the office now. It's like, well, now we saw the emperor's naked, baby doll. The emperor has no clothes. There was no reason for me to do my job in the office for all those years. And now I'm kind of pissed about it, actually. The idea that you think you can just say, oh, yes, well, pay no mind to the man behind the curtain, come back to work. No, I'm not. But I'm not, though. I'm not doing that. Because if you insist that I come back to work after I've proven that I don't need to be at work, then I'll just leave and I'll go to another company, maybe one of your competitors. And this is how it works now. And the most transparent and ridiculous and asinine justification for bringing people back to the offices, but for our culture, how dare you talk about the culture? Culture is organic. It comes from people. It doesn't come from fiat, from the top, from the CEO. For our culture, how dare you misuse that word? Don't get that word out of your mouth. You have nothing to say about the culture. Although you are, whatever his name is, Jamie D, CEO of Goldman Sachs, you have nothing to say about the culture. That's the one thing you don't control. It comes up from the ground. It's how the employees feel about working there. And you can't invoke culture to say we need to force people back to work because it makes the culture better. It literally makes the culture worse when you force people to do things they don't want to do. And that is obvious. That's obvious. So that's my story to start off this discussion. Culture is organic, it comes up from the employees. It does not come down from the leadership team. They can say that it does, but it clearly doesn't. If the culture is good, everybody can feel it. It's a good energy at work. And when you have a job like that, you know. And when the culture is bad, they will say things like, you have to be here at 8 o'clock on Monday morning for the culture of innovation. Nope. Innovation, collaboration, all the good things that we want at work come from trust. They come from people feeling trusted, feeling valued, feeling listened to, feeling like part of a community at work. And that definitely does not coexist with a command and control mindset among managers. I'm going to pause and just see what kind of questions we may have at this point, or thoughts, observations. We have June from New York and Olivia from Wilmington. And see, I've been there on the way to Emerald Isle, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, Charles from Qatar, and Anna from Mississippi. Hello. And Kim from Philly, the city of brotherly love, and Alfred from Nigeria, and Sheila from Nashville. Hey, thanks for coming, Deborah from Georgia and South Wales. Wow. And UAE. So happy you guys are here. Malaysia, KSA. Wow. CDMX. That's a new one on me, Victor. Not sure where that is. CDMX. Albania. Hello, hello, hello. Falamindere for joining us. London, Ontario. London and Ontario. Is it London, Ontario? Or the London over in UK? Dubai, Netherlands. Hello. From Nepal, from Utah. Okay. So I'm so glad you exist in this space doing what you do. Thank you so much. You're the voice of reason in an exploitative system that used labor as nothing but a commodity. I found you on LinkedIn back in 2014. Wow, we were so young, remember? I wish your site had more of your articles like it did back then. You put out really great written content. You're right, we need you back in the office because culture is a giant and transparent grift. Hard pass. If I could do the job from home for 2 years, I could do it from home now. And what is it with recruiters still using these antiquated ATS applications? Couldn't agree with you more. That force you to retype everything you just uploaded with your resume. Ugh. Hopefully, third-party recruiters are not doing that. Hopefully. Hello from Texas. Hello. Why barracks culture is still ongoing. Looking job online French. Bienvenue, Sarah. Emperor's naked. Yup. Gonna swipe that one. Go for it. Cubicle culture versus coffee shop. Hello from Peru and South Africa. Wow. Dallas, Texas. Big D Dallas. Feels like a musical. Feel like it was a musical way back in the day. I'm a musical nerd. Vancouver, so great. The culture is the vibe we have. Yes, it is. We build it. Verily from Lockport. I love you. Verily, thank you for joining us. Beirut, Peru. Superstitions, yes. How do you know if you're a company with a livable culture? Let's take that and then I'll return to the agenda. You know a good culture. It's not something someone has to tell you. People trust one another. Your boss trusts you. You trust your boss. People will joke and laugh with one another. You can do your job without artificial impediments, right? It's usually not a secret if you're in a good culture. And it's not a secret if you're in a bad culture. It's hard to hide that, right? There's a lot of rules, unnecessary rules. People don't really trust you, even though they hired you, right? A lot of metrics, a lot of fear. People don't talk, they whisper. And then the boss comes over and they stop talking, right? It sounds like a movie, but it's real. We've all lived through this. You should consider doing live streams on YouTube. I won't go on LinkedIn. This is on YouTube, sweetie. How do you think you saw it? All right, let's keep going. Okay, so 10 ways to build a vibrant culture. Number one, remove obstacles. The reason many organizations don't have a good culture is not because they haven't done the right things, like they haven't put in the right programs. Culture doesn't arise from programs, it's an energy field. So the number one thing to do to create a healthy culture is take away impediments. And almost every organization has them. Like at Goldman Sachs, where the CEO feels like it can say, come back to work. And everybody's like, okay, sure, let me go get my bus pass. What? No, I will sit at my house and I will wait you out. And if you fire me, I got 3 recruiters on the speed dial that I will call. That is the world now. And CEOs need to know this, and they need to take away impediments that keep people from bringing themselves to work. Now, what are those impediments? Unnecessary metrics and measurements, very, very common, right? A tone in communications from leadership that say effective April 15th, it will no longer be permissible to do XYZ. Who do you think you're talking to? These are your own coworkers that you brought in, that you invited in. I feel like my job as head of HR always was to remind people how lucky we were to have them on the team and to help them resolve anything that came up and to be open so that if something did come up, something sticky potentially like sexual harassment, discrimination, horrible things that do happen at work, I would hear about it because they trusted me and they trusted their manager and they trusted the other managers and the other HR people, so that there was a lot of conversation about things, small things and big things that went wrong, because things always go wrong at some point. So a big, big, big impediment is just a sense in a workplace that you better not say anything to anybody if there's a problem, because they don't want to hear about it. Our posture toward employees has to be, of course, I want to hear about it. How are you doing? How is the job? How are you doing? What do you need? And it's not hard and it's not expensive. Leading through trust is actually much cheaper, easier, and faster than managing through fear like this. It's so much easier. It says, "Yeah, I don't know how to do this stuff. We hired you. You're amazing. Your judgment on this is much better than mine." Right? Okay, I'm VP of HR, right? The company is growing, and it's gone public, and it's about to join the Fortune 500, big company, and I'm hiring people like a comp analyst and a benefits guru and whatever. Am I going to tell them how to do benefits? I'm going to say, here's what we're trying to accomplish. What do you think? And we're going to talk about it. I'm not going to say, no, we're not doing that because I'm in charge. That would be 100% my own insecurity that I'm carrying around because I have a hole in my stomach that's never been filled since I was a little kid. Now, undoubtedly, I do have a hole in my stomach that's never been filled, but I'm not going to fill it that way, right? By exercising authority over somebody else. And if we could just trust ourselves enough to trust the people that we hired through a very careful selection process, then many of our cultural problems and our management problems would go away. It is literally fear versus trust. And trust is, Captain Marvel and Captain America and Iron Man and all the Avengers and all the good guys and little Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and all of them. And fear is, whatever, whoever the villain is. What's his name? Snap guy. Thanos, right? It's there, and we have to talk about it, and we have to acknowledge it. Because I hear stories in my inbox every single day. I just got one. Okay, here's a story that I just got in my inbox, and I think it illustrates this point about culture being organic. A gentleman wrote to me, and he said, I'm not a guru, but I'm kind of well versed in my topic, which is a fairly specific area of software engineering that not everyone can do. And I'm happy that I can. And I got a new job about 8-9 months ago, and it's going really well. And I got a text, come to the CEO's office. CEO wants to ask you a question. I don't really know the CEO, talked to him once or twice, but I go down there and he's asking me about some technical stuff. And it was a pretty good discussion. And we're talking about this and that and what should we do. And I felt good. I felt like CEO is asking my opinion. This is why I came to this smaller company and I'm sharing my opinion. It's really a fertile, intellectually stimulating discussion. And I feel great. And all of a sudden it hits me. If my boss were sitting here, would not be cool with this conversation at all. My boss would have opinions. They would want to get in there. They would be mad. that the CEO called to speak to me and not my boss. And it just hit me that I was putting myself in danger, political danger, by having this great conversation with the CEO. And then a second later, it hit me that I better not say anything to the CEO about that, because our CEO is great, but he's not nimble. He's not a communicator. He's not real empathetic. He's just not a, touchy feely guy. And he wouldn't get this interpersonal stuff. If I said, I want to be respectful of Tony, my manager, he might want to be in this discussion. I couldn't even say that to the CEO, because the CEO would say, don't worry about Tony. Well, I am worried about Tony, right? I work in the United States. I don't have a contract. I could be let go. Not that I think Tony's going to let me go, but it wouldn't help my relationship with him. And when I realized that I couldn't have that conversation with the CEO, and I also couldn't really continue the discussion with all of my ideas, because it would inevitably get back to Tony. Hey, I talked to your employee. They have all these great ideas. Tony's head would explode. And I realized it's not a good culture here. Somebody's fault. CEO is not a bad guy. Tony's not a bad guy. They're just a little bit too fearful to trust themselves to just be in that completely fertile, collaborative space. And that's why Jamie Dimon from Goldman Sachs is out to lunch, which has been made clear many, many, many times before. Just look up Representative Katie Porter's shellacking of this guy with the whiteboard. It's embarrassing, but he keeps his job. And, he's ordering people. Go ahead, order people, impotent thing, you darling. That era is ending. And who's going to make it end faster is working people and leaders and HR leaders saying that we're not going to do that. I feel like one of my greatest contributions to the companies that I've worked for is saying to the CEO, no, don't do that. We're going to do this. And being willing to put my whole thing into it. Like, yeah, in an abstract way, I'm putting my job at risk. And there were a couple of times I really did feel like I'm putting my job at risk. But what else am I going to speak for if not what I believe in, right? So you shouldn't have to, and yet this is the world that we're living in. I'm going to stop and look at a couple of these. Truth, Angus, companies value shareholders more than employees. We know that, right? Shareholders at the top, customers next, management, and then employees at the bottom. Only below them is job seekers. Employers hold all the cards. Now I'm going to argue with you there, Angus. No, employers don't hold all the cards. Employer holds the cards while you're in the building. My whole message to you is there's many other buildings. They don't hold the cards. They do not hold the cards, especially now. Google War for Talent or, Great Resignation or any of these things. You hold the cards. It's your life and it's your career. Don't buy that malarkey. Employers hold the cards. In no way do employers hold the cards. But they do value shareholders more than employees. Applause for asking, how are you doing? And waiting to hear the truth. How are you doing? How's it going? What's up? How's the job? Right? That's funny. Thank you, El Mission. Everybody hit like. Good suggestion. Everybody hit like on the live stream. Like. Hi from Exton. I feel like that's near Philadelphia, maybe. Love our hybrid schedule. Oh, that's so great. So great, the hybrid schedule. Absolutely love it. Checking in from Ethiopia. Wonderful that you're here. Amasekanalo. Hi from Liverpool. Beautiful place. Absolutely spot on. I've worked from home for 5+ years and thankfully have a stellar leadership team who realizes we work harder from home. Right. Okay. Well, I owe you 10 ways to improve the culture. So the first way is to remove obstacles. What are the obstacles? Unnecessary policies and metrics that serve no purpose in terms of moving the work forward. They're just to make supervisors feel comfortable that they've got everything battened down and buttoned down and counted and surveilled and put into little boxes that will never make your company great, and it will actively work against having the culture that you want and deserve. So the first thing is removing obstacles. A tone can be an obstacle, as we talked about. Politics, which is allocation of scarce resources in an organization, can absolutely be a huge impediment to having a healthy company. Oh, well, I don't want to say this to this person. I still hear from people every day who say, I can write to people for work questions at my level, but not a level above. They won't answer. That's dysfunction right there. What difference does it make what title someone has? We're trying to move forward down that path. We're trying to feel our energy and just keep going and say, what are we trying to do? Let's do it. That's when you go home from work feeling like you really accomplished something, not when you sent out a bunch of CYA emails because you don't want to get in trouble, right? What's up with the employee agreement in the USA? It's all about at will here in the US. Yeah, and there isn't even an agreement. It's just an offer letter that says this is not to be construed as a contract. That's a huge problem. And I appreciate you bringing that up. San Francisco, Cali, and thank you for suggesting that people like the live stream. That's a genius idea. Yeah, this is a real problem for culture in the United States. We don't have employment agreements. And I like to talk about it all the time, because I want you to know. I want you to know that if you were working in France or the UK or most of the countries that people write to us from, they all have employment agreements. They just can't be fired because somebody decides they don't like their face, right? They just can't be fired. They also just can't have their job description changed or their pay or their hours. It's in the contract. And other countries, other industrialized countries take this for granted. Of course, I have a contract. Why would I take a job if they could fire me the next day? Well, may you ask, but that's how we do it in the US. Since the 1870s, the era of, if you recall, the robber barons. You've heard about them back in the Gilded Age, and they were like filthy, filthy rich. We have them again. And it's this idea that, like, oh, we can do whatever we want. Okay, let's see what we have. I think we're good. I think we're caught up. Okay. So you're going to take away obstacles, number one. Number two, to have a great culture, you must talk about specific situations. It's pointless and actually counterproductive for CEOs and other top leaders to say, here at XYZ Industries, our culture is all about, don't tell us what the culture is, live it, demonstrate it, manifest it, prove it, right? When there's a human situation that arises, make the right decision, right? And we read about these things all the time, sadly, in the news. Employee, their family member needed urgent surgery, or there was something, and the work said you can't go. We're going to let you go. It's so obvious, right? Just make the human decision. Everybody worries about, I'm going to set a precedent. You set a precedent a million times a day, right? Your executives get paid a lot more than the lower level employees. And you make pay decisions, and you make promotion decisions, and you make time off decisions, and all kinds of minute decisions just based on how the situation is and what the company can flex. And you want to do that all the time, constantly be talking about what is the context? What is the context? We're not going to rely on policy. We're going to rely on human situations and context, with the idea of being fair, of course, and particularly in with respect to diversity and inclusion, right? We're going to keep tabs on that. But the number one thing is going to be to try to remind people that we understand they have obligations outside of work, and we respect those. We respect them. We're not going to say, oh, it's the policy. There's nothing I can do. When I was an HR leader, I told the HR folks, and I do regret this, so I'm apologizing to them through this live stream today. If an employee comes to you with a situation they want help sorting out, and you say, that's not the policy, I can't help you, I have no use for you, I'm going to have to let you go. Because your job is not to be a oral version of the policy manual. Your job is to help people find a workaround. Now, the part that I regret about that is, why did I threaten them? That was horrible. You don't get people into trust through fear, right? You don't threaten people into doing the right thing. What I should have said was, you totally have permission to follow your gut and your instinct and help this person find a workaround, rather than saying, it's not in the policy, right? Sometimes HR people and managers feel like, well, I'd be deluged with employee complaints and questions if I gratified everyone, but you would for a little while, and then it would sink, 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 because they would trust you and they would know that the company is going to have their back. When you see these stories on LinkedIn and people say, the company had my back when I, went into labor unexpectedly, or my mom was ill, or whatever, it's like, you want to work for that company, right? That's what culture is. Culture is the way we deal with our employees. It's nothing a CEO can dictate. The third way to have a healthy culture, after removing obstacles, that might take a minute, and talking about specific situations all the time, is to create more feedback channels. Make it extremely easy for employees to tell you if something is not perfect. And I mean not perfect, because you might say, oh, I wish there was something I could do about that. I know it's a little dark in that side of the office. We put in those blackout curtains because it was too light before and it was burning people's eyeballs out. So now it's a little bit too dark. I could get you a task light. These are not trivial things. You think it's trivial when you don't have the right lighting to do your job? It's maddening. None of it is trivial. None of it is trivial, right? Somebody is expecting and they need to put their feet up on an ottoman because what happens, what's the thing when water in your legs, I forget what it's called, but it happened to me, happens to a lot of people when they're pregnant. And so yeah, it's a tiny thing. Let us go find a footstool. I mean, come on, right? This is the energy that we want. If I take care of your small issues, you're going to trust me to take care of the big issues. And you're going to trust me to take you seriously when you come to me with something kind of sticky that might be scary to talk about, right? My supervisor has been saying some really weird and inappropriate things, and I wasn't sure who to tell, so I thought I'd tell you. Hallelujah. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for telling me that, right? Okay, I super appreciate it. And our number one concern is you and not putting you in any risk. So we're going to figure this out. But I can't thank you enough. And I appreciate your trust in me, right? That's our posture as HR people and as leaders. Non-biz, did you see the Spielberg West Side Story? I didn't see it. I'm not, it's not a high priority. I didn't read like huge, over the top, wonderful reviews. I'll stick with the original for now. Swelling, yes, swelling, but there's a medical name. It doesn't matter for that condition. Starts with onboarding and orientation is a very bad start. Sing it, Gina. It's the truth. If you don't bring people in the right way, it's going to be very hard to get them on the right track after that. And actually, even in your recruiting process, couple of obstacles to remove in the recruiting process. If you're looking for that healthy culture, remove the pre-employment tests. What good do they do? You know what message that sends a candidate? You might be qualified in your background, but we have to check out your personality. Who are you? Are we dating? Are we about to move in together? Are we a romantic thing? Are we an item? Are you my therapist or my religious advisor? Why would you feel that it's appropriate in order for me to get this job as an admin or a quality control person or a software designer or whatever, for you to suss out my personality with some crappy 1970s instrument that is completely unvalidated, basically a parlor game? That's such an insult. I wish I could get inside the brains of CEOs to say, get rid of all your pre-employment tests. You think I'm being too emphatic? This is really important because you are driving candidates away with these stupid tests. You know what managers say when I ask, why do you use this pre-employment test? Don't you know how much candidates hate it? I mean, I did a test, what do you call a poll here on LinkedIn. And it's like 95% of people said, get rid of them. And the comments and the emails and the messages in my LinkedIn inbox. So it doesn't matter what the candidate thinks, really, because you have competitors for talent, right? Kind of matters. Kind of matters what the candidate thinks, unless you look at it like this: employer up here, candidate down here. Matters tremendously what the candidate thinks. Are you hiring for talent or are you hiring for desperation? Are you hiring for talent? Are you hiring for, people that have got it? Or are you hiring the person who's most willing to roll over and show you their soft underbelly? That's the question. Sarah, I remember you saying a long time ago that during the hiring process is the best a company will ever treat you, and you should be aware of how they are behaving at that time. Yes, that is the truth. Sing it, Sarah. If I had taken the time to write an operatic duet, which I totally planned to do, knowing you were going to be here today, Sarah, we could sing it right now. But I spaced out and I did the dishes instead. So we are not in a position to sing that operatic duet, but we will sing another time, Sarah and me. But that is the biggest truth. When you're applying for a job, when you're interviewing with a company, the way they treat you, that's the best they're ever going to treat you. They're not going to treat you better once they have you on board. Right now, they're trying to sell you on taking the job. So if they're rude, if they don't respond for weeks at a time, if they're very curt with their emails, and if they command you to come to an interview at a certain time versus asking you what's best for you, these are huge red flags. Whereas on the other hand, if they're chill with you and they say, hey, sorry, it's taken me a few days. I'm trying to get you in here Friday or Monday. Which works better for you? Oh, okay, right away. Better than average. right? That's a good sign. And you're going to get countless signs in the recruiting process of what kind of culture it is. Let's see what we got in the questions, and I will return to our little 10-point list. Did you hear about quiet quitting? Yeah, I wrote a post about it, got 1 million views. Why is this a thing right now? Okay, we'll get there. All right, so removing obstacles, number one way to have a vibrant, wonderful, healthy culture. Number two, talking about specific solutions. You got to do it. Specific problems and solutions. Talk about sexual harassment. What does it look like when you see it? Talk about discrimination. Talk about inclusion. Don't just do happy talk, posters on the walls, motivation, right? Leadership, teamwork, that's all abstract. No one cares. What does it look like in the clinch? What do I do when an other employee is stealing credit for my work? You say it shouldn't matter whose idea it was. It kind of matters to me. I spent 6 months on it and I feel like I can't trust this coworker and I'm unlikely to collaborate with them again in the future. That's a real thing. It's not nothing, right? We tell people to take pride in their work, but then they say, well, I kind of wanted my name on that report because I made it, I created it, designed it, and created it. Oh, you shouldn't worry about that. Well, and yet I do. My body says I should. So if you won't listen to me and don't take this seriously, you have a lot of competitors for talent that I can go to. Number three is creating more feedback channels. HR has to be activated as advocates for your employees. All managers have to be activated as advocates for all employees, not just the ones in their own section. You need a confidential 1-800 hotline that people can call from home, from anywhere, right? From their cell, in the cab, in the Uber, at the park, and say there's something going on. They give them, the service gives them a number, so they don't give their name, and they can call back and type in that number and figure out, what is happening with my issue. These are sticky issues. Could be embezzlement, right? Could be bad things, selling drugs. This is stuff that happens in lots of workplaces, if not most. And we need to talk about them a ton. And we need to have feedback channels so that people can, without fear of retaliation, talk about this bad stuff when it happens. Number four is people need latitude and respect. Latitude means freedom to move. We're going to give you this desk. We're going to give you this role, this assignment. We're going to spell it out. We're going to talk to you about it. We're going to keep refining it. But how you get it done is up to you because we hired you and we trust you because we're sharp and capable people and we hire sharp and capable people. I'm not going to micromanage you and tell you this is how you have to do this. One of the great travesties of the second half of the 20th century is how we took jobs that someone could take pride in and we chopped them up into tiny little bits and bytes through performance management and said, you have to hit all these little metrics. Okay, so all I really am is a machine to hit metrics. My brain, my creativity, all my creative juices, all my ideas, my intellectual curiosity, none of that matters. Just hit the metric. So in other words, I'm successful when I do the job the way anybody else would do it. There's no way for me to put my stamp on it. No, we don't care about your stamp, sweetheart. Just do the job. Just you're part of the machine. Well, who gets excited about that? Nobody gets excited about that. If you want people to be excited about the work, give them latitude. Let them control how they do their job, which is different than the person next to them and different than the person on the other side. And you're going to respect their time outside of work. They leave. They say, I'm leaving a few minutes early today. I got to pick up my child and take them to the dentist. Oh my gosh, I hope everything is fine. Boom, off you go. Micromanaging for productivity. That's so 1905. It's not now. The findings, the research is that a really involved, engaged employee is 5 times more productive and more profitable for an employer than an average employee. So do you want people who grudgingly just hit the spec and grudgingly comply with the policies, the dumb policies that come from fear? Or do you want somebody who's really into it and they're given a workshop and they're given the tools to just create great stuff? The second way is so much easier and more fun and more profitable and more fizzy, and it's just healthier for everybody, not just the people in the building, but their families and our communities in general. All right, so I'm gonna take a little pause. Hello from Turkey, merhaba. Spielberg, West Side Story. When you're a jet, all the way from the first cigarette to your last dying day. What else? Do you hear about quiet quitting? Oh yeah, I said I would address that. Quiet quitting is a ridiculous, insulting name for actually what what a lot of people on union contracts, police and firemen, fighters call working to the contract. Quiet quitting is just doing the job as it's defined and not more. And if it comes from Gen Z, who knows what comes from? Is someone tracking this, right? But supposedly this everybody's writing about this like it's a big thing. It's so dumb. It's just the idea of saying I got to have boundaries because I saw my parents and maybe my grandparents just absolutely kill themselves for nothing on the job. So I'm going to run my career a different way, the Liz Ryan way, the human workplace way. I'm going to have boundaries. I'm going to do a great job when I'm at work. Then I'm going to go home or somewhere else and live the rest of my life. And I'm not apologizing for that. And I'm not coming to a staff meeting at 7 o'clock at night. And I'm not gonna go above and beyond and bring work home every weekend because I don't believe in the corporate ladder. Because you know why? The corporate ladder is sawdust now. It's sawdust. You could use it to throw on the floor of a bar if you're going to have, like peanut shells, they see all over the floors of bars sometimes. I don't know why, to soak up the beer maybe, but it's not anything that I can climb. And also, I don't want to. My life is really important to me. And work is a part of my life and it's not my whole life. Those days are over. All right, that's it for quiet quitting. The fifth way to create a vibrant culture, a human culture in your organization is a managerial understanding. That means you talk with your managers constantly about the fact that your organization is committed to being healthy, to being warm, to being human. And you're going to run it that way. You're not going to write someone up because they disagreed with you or they dared to debate you. In a healthy organization, there's debate everywhere in the hallways. And it's not just employees debating or managers debating, it's managers and employees interchangeably debating because they care more about getting the right answer than they care about defending their own ego. That is the mark of a healthy organization. The trust in one another, in themselves, and in the mission supersedes and outweighs their fear of looking bad or feeling like, oh, I let an employee win an argument with me, so therefore, I suck. A healthy organization, there's more trust. An unhealthy organization, there's more fear. And it's as simple as that. And CEOs don't control the culture, and managers also don't control the culture. So talking with managers all the time is so critical. I remember a young manager coming to see me and saying, Liz, I'm not going to do the accent. He was from, you know, uh, different continent from me. And he said, I am so unfamiliar with this management style. It seems like here, employees have just as much clout and just as much of a vote as managers do. I said, well, we don't really think in terms of votes, but if someone has a good idea in our country company, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be anybody. It could be the UPS delivery person. It could be your cousin that you talked to on the phone last night. It's, we just try to bring up good ideas and get them to the light of day and get them talked about because that's how our company keeps innovating and keeps, winning out in the marketplace. And he said, I'm just not used to it. In my country, not just the work experiences I've had, but my father and my grandfather and everyone I know, it was like company up, employees down. And I said, I get it. And that feels like a transition, like a tough transition. How can I help you make that transition? How can I help you make that easier? So that when an employee says, that's not really the best practice, here would be a way that's safer and faster and whatever, that you don't feel like someone's attacking you. And he said, well, maybe we could role play a little bit. And I was like, oh, of course, I'll role play with you. We'll role play. You drop in my office anytime and we will role play situations and I will challenge you a little bit in the role play, just like your employees are going to do. Because I know your employees and they're awesome and they really care about the work and our customers and one another, but they don't see as a manager like, oh, I better not say that. And we don't want them to, because that wouldn't be a good thing. And he became one of our best supervisors because he was like, this is so easy. Yes, it is easy. You don't have to put your head on the pillow at night worrying that somebody challenged your authority because nobody gives a damn. If someone challenges your authority, it's like, what are we trying to do? People get passionate. And when I was a young HR person, supervisors used to come in and say, I want to write somebody up. And I would say, well, yeah, we're not doing that. Like, it's just learning a different language, a much, much, much better language. Law in an interview, when person doing the interview says they have to go to the executive director, and I was interviewing with the director. Sorry, I need someone that can make decisions. I moved on and have an offer elsewhere. Thank you, Lisa Ann. Yeah, this is the world now. Okay, listen to Lisa Ann. I have to talk to some. Really, you have to talk to somebody, and you're a director. Okay, because for me, I have voice, and I like to use my voice, and I can only use my voice the way I want to when I'm with people who use their voice. So I can't work for you if you have no juice, right? I feel sorry for you. I feel compassion for you because we've all been in that place where we can't find our voice, we can't find our backbone, but I'm not going to work under you, not in a hierarchical system. If you're fearful like that, because I'm not, and it's not going to work out very well. Do women promote a more healthy work environment than men? You think I'm going to touch that, Angus, with a 10-foot pole? Not. How do you gauge ego without pre-employment tests? Why do you need to gauge ego? What even is ego? Ego, in psychology is the sense of self, right? That's why people go on like an acid trip and they call it ego death, and they don't register themselves as a person, right? Ego is not, there's nothing bad about ego unless you mean someone who's insecure and they're bossy or something, commanding over their coworkers. It's conversation. You're going to talk to them. You're going to talk to them about situations. Here's one of the things that comes up. This comes up. Do you really think there is a pre-employment test that can assess whether someone is secure or insecure? By the way, these are not permanent conditions. We are all insecure. We are all fearful at times. We go in and out of fear. It's absolutely normal and unavoidable. Forget pre employment tests. They are nonsense. They're insulting. I don't know why they're legal. The only reason they're legal is because we have no enforcement of our employment laws in the United States because of staffing. Okay, what else we got here? No more musical theater questions, I see. I would be happy to answer those. All right. So we got halfway through our list so far of ways to build a healthy culture. We said remove obstacles. We could do a whole LinkedIn Live just on that. Talk specifically about situations that arise. Don't treat them like we can't discuss them. We can't discuss conflict. We can't discuss role confusion. We can't discuss sexual harassment, which happens every day at work. We're going to discuss it all the time openly. We're going to discuss it. We're going to say, look, I saw something in a meeting. It was another manager, and I wasn't sure, but to me, it seemed off. They said this, and say, great, let's talk about that and how you would handle that the next time. You have to talk specifics, or all the lofty platitudes mean you don't really care and you really don't want the topic to come up. The third one is feedback channels. Make it easy, easy, easy for employees to tell you when something is off or they're just not sure how to do something. Number four, latitude, how to do the job, their decision, fewer metrics, fewer policies, fewer, weekly reports that no one reads, and more grace, more ability to move. You're trusting the people you hired. Always available to talk about how to do things, but in general, it's your assignment. I heard about a restaurant chain that said to their servers, look, when you get a station in one of our restaurants, it's going to be 5 or 6 tables, and that is your business. That is your company, basically, because how you run that station is completely up to you. You're going to be polite, obviously. You're going to be prompt. You're going to, make recommendations about the menu and all of that, but it's a business. And we're going to show you what they bought on a weekly basis, what they bought, your tips, uh, what you upsold and all that kind of stuff. We're going to give you so much latitude over this part of the business because that's how you will engage and care and feel some ownership and know that we respect you. The fifth one is managerial understanding across the organization, leaving no one out, that says this is how we manage. It might not be what you're used to, but we better talk about it. If you're not talking about how to lead and how to manage all the time, your culture is going to suffer. I guarantee it. Getting to the second half of our list, 5 more ways to build a healthy culture. The sixth one is less tell and more ask. We have this habit of saying, here's how you do this. Get me this thing, do this, because it feels like, as a manager, like we're working our way through our to-do list, and that feels satisfying. I'm being a manager. I need this. I need this. Call this guy, do this thing. Ask. There's no reason you couldn't have a 10-minute check-in meeting 3 times a week and say, so what's going on and what do you need from me? That's the question every manager needs to ask. What do you need from me? How can I support you? How can I get up under, right, this whole center of activity in our department and support it? Does it mean taking an issue to senior management for you to make it come to fruition? Does it mean speeding up that time off request for your sister's wedding? Let me go do that. That's a high priority for me as a manager. How can I expect you to care about your work if I don't care about getting you the PTO you need for your sister's wedding, right? This is why I say HR starts on the ground. Leadership starts on the ground, not up in the sky. I read a book and it had these 5 principles. That's not it. That's not it. What do your teammates need and how can you help them get it? The 6th, did I say 6th? The 7th, a way to build a great culture is to always look at the human side, always, right? Always look at the human side. We see these bonehead moves from companies where they literally never stopped and said, how's this going to hit the employees? You know, we've been working a 5-day, 8 hours a day shift, and we're going to 4 10s next Wednesday. What? People have childcare. People have transportation issues. They have health issues. They have obligations. You can't just, they are human beings with families. And I don't have to say this to you folks, but this is taking the human side always, always, always. It's worth the time. It's worth the conversation. And it always, always pays off. Number 8 is HR advocates. Not, we administer processes. Yeah, but I mean, literally an outsourced HR department could do that. If you're not outsourced, it's because they need you in the organization with an ear to the ground, taking the pulse, being an advocate, being of service to the employees and contractors on site all the time, like this, open arms. What can I do for you? What do you need? What would make your day easier? How can I help you? Let me know how I can help you. That's the job, right? You don't get to advise the CEO unless you know what the employees on the ground are thinking. The 9th way to build a healthy culture is to be ready to escalate. Escalate. I've been involved now in 3 sexual harassment lawsuits as an expert witness. My role was the expert witness, okay? And so I am explaining to the court theoretically, but either in a deposition or in a courtroom, what the best HR practice would be. And of course, in these organizations, they were not following best practices, or they wouldn't have had a big sexual harassment lawsuit, much less had to pay out gazillions of dollars. And so I'm talking about how to, avoid HR problems, like sexual harassment being one. And in all of these companies, they had no escalation process for people to say, I know I talked to the local HR rep, but they didn't do anything. Where do I go now? Water finds its own level. People aren't going to say, okay, I guess, well, who cares about the sexual harassment then? It's fine. It's not fine. It's not going to get fine. And the problem is only going to get worse for the company unless they deal with it, which means it has to be easy to escalate. It has to be easy to go over your boss's head for anyone in the organization without retribution, right? It's pretty rare, isn't it? It has to be easy. It has to be painless. And that is how you get people feeling like you can really trust that the company is going to find the best outcome. They're going to find the best solution to a problem if there are no barriers to saying, I have a problem. We took care of this aspect of it back in February, but I still have this thing going on. And if it's a problem for me, it's a problem for the business, right? So you have to have an escalation process that employees know and trust. And the 10th way to have a great culture is to celebrate all the time. Individual accomplishments, team accomplishments, and what the organization is doing. And interestingly, since COVID-19 started, we just haven't seen as much celebration. And I hear people saying, well, it's nose to the grindstone now. It's all about, we got to hit those goals. Well, people are hitting their goals. Corporations are making more money, more profits than they have in years. The pandemic was not bad. Certain businesses, of course, restaurants and hospitality and some others, but in general, corporate profits are through the roof. This is the time to celebrate with employees. And we have to do that if we want people to care, because if we don't see it as an occasion worth celebrating when something great happens in the business, then why are the employees working so hard? It has to be a group win and it has to be an individual win. Has to be an individual win. When we get there, we have great organizations. And by the way, they exist. They're all over the place. We have to look for them because it's not ubiquitous. It's not, you can't just assume next company you apply for is going to have this kind of culture, but it's very easy to find out. It's easy to find out at the interview, right? You say, tell me about the role and tell me about my latitude in the role, how I would have the opportunity to put my stamp on it. And some interviewers are going to look like this. Spilling salts. Oh, oxygen. I can't, your own stamp on the job. There's no such thing. No, 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 sweetie. You're just a little cog in the machine. There's no stamp. How could you even think that? Okay, thanks. No, thank you so much for clarifying. I'll just be moving on, right? You don't have time. You deserve to work for somebody who respects you. Tell me about reachability after hours. What are your expectations around reaching me after I leave here or after I log off? Tell me about work on the weekends. These questions are becoming normal now because so many people have been burned. The idea that you shouldn't ask, and then they're going to say, oh, yeah, we always have a Saturday meeting, which is like 8 to 2 every third Saturday. What? We didn't mention it in the interview because, it's a salary job. We figured you would know there's unpaid overtime. What? Right? Everything's shifting now. It's changing. And you might feel afraid to find your voice in an interview. Better than, my friend, than 6 weeks down the road, right? Better now to know. Just like dating. Wouldn't you rather know if somebody is not cool to date rather than get involved with them? And then on the 8th date, when you think this could be a good thing, they say something horrifying, right? Better to know up front. To bring the right things in, I tell my kids and our clients, to bring the right things in, you have to slam the door on the wrong things. And you have to slam the door so hard the building shakes. Wham! You have to say, nah, 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 nah. Nope. And never look back and never regret it. And I swear that will bring in the right things because you will have lifted up your own expectations for who gets to be around you and what kind of energy gets to be around you. It's a really important life skill, and not just a skill, but a mindset, right? And are there structural obstacles? Of course, we could go on and on about them, right? Structural everything, structural racism and sexism, and ableism and homophobia, everything, right? It's rampant, and yet, how do I conduct myself given that and feel my power every day, every minute? Or make that a practice so that I get better and better at saying, thank you, no, right? Next, next, next. Oh, here's someone I can talk to. That's the idea. That's why I do these things, right? To remind you what you have and to remind you how important it is to tend your flame. Let's see what questions we have here as we move to the end of the live stream today. How about letting employees bring pets into work? That used to be a thing. Would that promote? I mean, for some people, that's a sticky issue. Some people are allergic, right? Celebration, yes. Celebrate. Is that Casey and the Sunshine Band? I'm not 100% sure. Hi, Liz. Should I handle a low ball offer when I meet all the requirements of the position, have 37 years of professional experience, and know the average salary others are receiving? If the average salary others are receiving is higher, why would you take the low ball offer, right? There's no reason to. If you know that you can go out there and get a better paying job, I mean, there is something about companies that pay under the market rate. That's a very big signal, a red flag about how it's going to be to work there apart from the salary, right? If there's some mitigating factor, they're 1 minute from your house or whatever, you're going to retire in a year and you don't care, that could affect that decision. But in general, lowball salary is a massive red flag. Okay. Do we have any more questions? When did businesses stop posting salary and compensation in their ads? Oh, I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago. A minute ago. Yeah. And you can't force them to put their salary in the job ad, although I think LinkedIn should do that, and Indeed.com. But what you can do is not apply if they don't have the salary in the job. Or you can apply and then make it your goal in the very first interaction to find out what that salary is. Or conversely, tell them what your salary requirement is so that if they're not paying that much, you won't waste any more time. Because that's the thing, right? You don't want to waste time with the wrong people. And I absolutely agree that employers should put the salary range right in the job ad. Cool in the gang. Thank you, Matt. That's Cool in the Gang, of course. Celebrate good times. Come on. Ba-da-da-dum, bum, 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 bum. Later, we'll do a whole 70s funk episode. All right, I have time for a couple more questions. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon, for tuning in. I'm super, super happy that you're here. Heard about quiet quitting. What else? Spielberg, West Side Story? No. Not sure about Spielberg and musical theater in general. Not hating. Just saying genius director, but, they can sack you whenever they want. Talking about the U.S., here we go again. Everyone's shocked to hear about U.S. labor law. Labor laws are there to assist employers, not employees. Yeah. Sore subject. It's true. U.S. leads the way in so many things in the world, but not labor laws, not employment laws. Hello from Santa Clara and Zaragoza, Spain, and Orange County, California. Let's see what we got. Hello, Joyce from Texas. Hello from Beirut. I think we got all the questions. I think we are good. It's 1:56 and we are wrapping up the live stream. I'm going to be back next Thursday. Pretty much every Thursday I'm here at 1:00 Eastern time. That's EDT on Thursdays. Our company is Human Workplace, and our mission is to reinvent work for people, which we do through online courses and coaching and consulting with employers. So yeah, here we are talking about work, talking about enema, or how do you pronounce that, Colleen? That's the word. It's exactly the word. Water that swells your legs when you are expecting, and you got to put your feet on a ottoman, a footstool. Thank you. Aloha from Honolulu. Thank you so much. We are going to just turn this to a total call and response thing because it's so much fun. You guys are so smart. That's the thing. One thing about Human Workplace followers is that they're just the smartest people. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Thank you so much, Pravina. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's always so much fun to hang out with you. Hello from Bosnia. And thank you very much. I said thank you. So I forget. You have to tell me. Edema. Thank you, Colleen. Look at the pronunciation guide. You're a word person. I love it. Edema. Yes. So this is something to watch out for, of course, when you're expecting. Legs can swell up, can be very uncomfortable. Put your feet on an ottoman. Thursday at 1 p.m. EST, I will mark the time. I'll watch you on YouTube, but not on LinkedIn. It's fine. Either way, you're super welcome. And thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Take some time for yourself. Keep growing your flame and just keep remembering what you have and what you bring, whether people see it, whether they don't see it. It's still so, so real. It's the realest thing there is. You're amazing. And thank you once again.